Reading from the article that is coming. That's what at least one financial expert is saying. Charles Brown of CB3 Financial says,
one of the brilliant moves that Kmart has done is to partnership with Facebook in these e-gift certificates, so you can actually...
Of government mismanagement. Charles Brown is the president of CB3 Financial Group. He joins us this morning from Chicago.
Significantly dropping. Basically, this is the year of the consumer.
Believe that they're capable of managing anything?
Well, it's sort of like handing the keys to the chicken coop to two wolves. Good evening, everyone. From Chicago, it's Thursday, August 27th. I'm your host, Charles Brown, Portfolio Manager with CB3 Financial Group. We are so glad you're here with us tonight, and a very special welcome to my new friends, Pat and Bob from Exeter, New Hampshire, where I've been the last 4 or 5 days, and in Boston seeing my daughter and son-in-law. So, real excited to see you guys tonight. We've got a lot going on. As you know, our slogan for the rest of the year is Live Free or Die, the slogan from New Hampshire. We are going to tell it like it is. We're going to invest well. We're going to do our research, and we're going to bring it to you guys. All right? From COVID to clarity, this is CB3 Live. Alrighty, tonight's top 3, Corona America. The vaccines are making progress at a breakneck speed. Stocks continue to make new highs. In fact, brand new highs just today in the S&P and the NASDAQ. And the 2020 campaign, hard to believe, guys. We're still in August, barely, but it's in full swing. Full swing. All right, if you guys know how to reach us here, for those of you that are new online tonight, be sure to subscribe to us for the Thursday night program, which you're watching right now, but also the Monday program. Okay, that's a shorter version. Just lets you know how the week started off, and it lets you know what I'm thinking I'm going to be covering the next Thursday. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. I tweet every single day. I'm guessing that'll go to twice a day as the political season unfolds. So join us there and on Facebook and LinkedIn. The coronavirus situation. Well, I highlight the number of deaths. No one likes to see any deaths from a virus or anything for that matter. But this number continues to drop. The number of cases increases, but the number of deaths continue to drop, and that's a positive because that means the morbidity rate is also dropping, and that's what we want to see. Last week's case was 38,000, the caseload I should say, up a little bit from 34,000, but also the previous week we were seeing 40,000 on most days and many days near 50,000. So we continue to move in the correct direction. I showed you this chart last week. It's been updated to include Louisiana because not only do they have COVID issues, but now they have massive aftermath from Hurricane Laura. So the South is in trouble right now. New England, as you can see in dark blue, doesn't have a COVID risk at all, and yet you've got a high risk in Idaho and a low risk in Oregon. This virus is still just stupefying the medical experts, although we are making some progress. But as far as trying to get some kind of pattern on how the infections treat Americans, there's just none yet. The great news is that Abbott Labs up over 10%. It says 9.3, but then in the aftermarket, they were up another 1.5%. They have a new 15-minute COVID-19 test granted emergency use, and Abbott's going to be able to sell this test for $5. Even Jim Cramer tweeted, hey, this is a deal changer, guys. It's 98% accuracy. Think of it like a pregnancy test. Hey, maybe it's time to travel again. If I'm an airline, I am really, really excited about it. Now, it's not a vaccine, it's a test. But in President Trump's acceptance speech tonight, he's expected to announce a deal with Abbott for 150 million tests. 150 million tests. What a staggering number. These can be administered in a doctor's or nurse's office. Soon this will be at home, I'm sure. But real exciting news. Again, it's not a vaccine, but at least, I'm going to buy a 10-pack. If I fly, I'll take the test. I come back, I take the test. I'm not going to any big parties, but it's the sort of thing that's very affordable, and it allows you to keep an inventory on your health, basically. And if you think you might have been exposed, to have an inexpensive test to take is really a big deal. Moderna, I've been talking to you guys about these guys, and it's really positive because now the 60,000, remember the 60,000 cases I said that they were lining up just 2 episodes ago? Now they're finding in these cases that it seems to work as well on older adults as it does on younger adults. And that is a big deal because as we know, and I'm not showing you the charts tonight because I've shown you so much, those 70 and above, and especially 85 and above, have an enormously high morbidity rate. And if Moderna's vaccine is going to work just as well on older adults, that's awesome. As far as parts of the country that are hotbeds, you see these spikes here in New York and Arizona, but those have mostly come down. We're not seeing any more huge number of cases in any states. Basically, COVID-19 is beginning to ebb bit by bit. And it couldn't happen sooner, in my opinion. This is the recovery tracker updated from last week. Really not much to show you other than it's leveling off, meaning that we're not going backwards, but we're not really going forwards either. I think that with the advent now of these tests and, of course, the vaccines, several of them that are in final stage development. I mean, normally these kind of vaccines, folks, take years, 3, 4, 8 years to develop. This is probably going to be issued on this calendar year, making it less than 9 months to introduce a vaccine for this horrible virus. I mean, it's just astounding, really, what the medical community and the administration working together has been able to accomplish. Now, for those in the media, as you know, I tell you the truth on this program. This is from the IMF. What have other countries done to support their people that have been out of work? This is not medically related. This is the people that have been put out at work. Look at Germany. How much of its cash? About 9%. 42% are pledges, equities, and loan guarantees. Who's contributed the most cash to their citizens? Look at that dark bar by the U.S. Yes, the United States has put more cash into its citizens' pockets than any other country on earth. This is from the International Monetary Fund. This is not from the Trump administration. The data that I'm giving you guys is dead on. So last time I asked you, What do you think this lockdown is going to mean? Now I'm asking you, how will the COVID lockdown end? Letter A is, well, life's going to resume about like it did in 2019. Letter B, life will be normal with distancing. C, life will be more home-centric, which is what we've had really since late February. And D, I don't really know what the future holds. We're on about a 25-second delay here, so let me look at the comments while you guys are answering this, okay? Just punch in your answers. Hey, Keith, thank you for the welcome back. Appreciate that. All right. Hey, Debbie from South Florida. Good to see you. Larry, good to see you. Hey, Martha from Michigan. I think we've got 4 time zones here, or almost. Waiting for our Montana people to sign on. Keith, normal with distancing. Okay, I'm with you on that. I think that's pretty accurate. Anybody else? What do we got here? Nellie, same thing. Tom Zinnicker, same thing. Debbie, same thing. Greg, C, yeah. Probably both B and C, right? Okay, yeah, Debbie, you got a B in there. Larry? Larry's A and Connie's B. Okay. We'll see if it resumes as 19. I'll tell you what, when I was in the airports while you guys are finishing answering this, more like it was more, first of all, they were ghost towns, both Chicago and Boston. But the eeriest feeling was going to the Hertz rental car, and there was nobody. There's no attendant. They just said, just go to your car and just drive away. Basically, because, I don't know, I guess they're cutting back on staff, but there couldn't have been 12 cars in this enormous area. You guys have been to this, normally where they hold 400 cars, 10 cars. That was it, because that's all the rentals they had for that day. Yeah, more confident this week. That's good, Kay. Okay, so here's what it looks like, guys. So you've got the preclinical work, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. You've got these companies trying to compete. We don't have emergency use yet, but notice that I just mentioned we have emergency use for Abbott, and that's not for the vaccination, but it's for the test. The test is really important too, but obviously it doesn't cure you. It just lets you know whether you have it or not, and that's been a big gap in the medical knowledge here. But getting to this emergency use and then to the final approval stage is really difficult, and to do it in this breakneck speed has tons and tons of challenges. Let's look at what some of those challenges are.
In response to the coronavirus crisis, researchers are working at a breakneck pace to develop solutions that will allow economies to reopen safely and permanently.
Without an effective vaccine, we won't be able to get this pandemic under control and stop the devastation that it's currently causing all around the globe.
Vaccines can take an average of 10 years to develop, according to a 2013 study. But researchers and pharmaceutical companies are hoping to bring their vaccine candidates for the new coronavirus to market in 12 to 18 months. Some are even talking about getting emergency use authorizations before the end of the year.
So what is making it possible to expedite this process so dramatically?
There are several factors, including prior knowledge of coronaviruses, specifically SARS and MERS, improvements in sequencing of viral genomes, advancements in bioengineering technologies, unprecedented government support and funding, plus a shortened testing timeline. Traditionally, after scientists develop a vaccine candidate, they run it through a series of tests. This starts in cells and then transitions to animals, usually beginning with mice and eventually progressing to monkeys. Testing only advances from one phase to the next if it's proven to be safe and effective.
At that stage, you would then likely perform what we call a challenge study. So that would be vaccinating an animal, then intentionally giving them the virus and seeing the impact of your vaccine on that disease model, where of course you would hope to protect it.
Then they'd use that data to get approval from regulators like the FDA to begin human testing. There are 3 stages of human trials, each one testing more people than the last. Approval is required for each stage.
Instead of this relay approach, where researchers wrap up each set of experiments before embarking on the next round, developers are now doing many tests in parallel.
So we're not skipping steps, but we're doing things at the same time, which of course costs a lot more. And there's a lot more work than doing it one after the other. And that's the key difference.
The novel coronavirus was discovered and sequenced less than 6 months ago. Several candidates are already in phase 1 of human trials, including those made by Inovio and Pfizer, even as companies await results from animal studies. Moderna recently started phase 2. Others are gearing up for phase 2 before phase 1 wraps up.
Our phase 1 trial will run for a year, but we're not going to wait for that full year period to have elapsed before we hopefully move on to the next stage of efficacy testing.
Because of the worry of COVID-19 being so devastating, we are expediting those processes. And there's a lot of concern that because we don't really know all that much about immunity to this virus, that we may be going too quickly. But so that's the balance here.
Vaccines work on a simple premise. They trick the body into thinking a virus has infiltrated it. So the immune system kicks into action and starts producing antibodies and other defenses against parts of the virus. In this case, scientists think their target is the spike protein, which the coronavirus uses to get into cells.
It's been shown from SARS and MERS that the spike protein is the major protein on the outside of the virus, of these coronaviruses, to which you raise neutralizing antibodies. And neutralizing antibodies is what you need to fight the infection.
So what will really end the pandemic is when there's enough immunity in the population. And either that immunity comes from everybody getting infected, or it comes from a vaccine. And it's a much gentler path for everybody to get a vaccine than for everybody to get infected.
This concept is known as herd immunity. Dozens of companies and labs are trying various technologies to develop vaccines that would get us there quickly. Scientists say it's the largest, most collaborative vaccine development effort they've seen in their lifetimes. They're testing 4 main strategies: weakened viruses, proteins, viral vectors, and genetic code vaccines. Weakened or inactivated virus vaccines are the most common. That's your annual flu shot. We have the most experience with these, but they can also be costly and time-consuming to mass produce. So in this case, they haven't been the preferred approach. Protein-based vaccines carry key parts of the virus into the body. For coronavirus, that's the spike protein. Sanofi and GlaxoSmithKline are among dozens of developers taking this approach. For viral vector vaccines, scientists use an inactivated virus and stuff it with a genetic code for the spike protein, which are cells then use to turn out viral proteins. The immune system then recognizes those as foreign. Johnson & Johnson is developing this type of vaccine for the coronavirus.
We use an adenovirus vector, and this adenovirus is a common cold virus, which normally doesn't cause any major disease, just a common cold. In the adenovirus, it becomes replication incompetent.
In the 4th and final category are genetic code vaccines. These contain the instructions for the spike protein. COVID vaccines being developed by Inovio, Pfizer, and Moderna fall into this category. These types of vaccines have never been approved for humans before, but they're generating a lot of excitement.
The reason we're seeing them out in front is the speed.
The speed in the manufacturing and the development?
Yeah, really both. Proteins are more diverse. They have all kinds of different shapes and characteristics. And so you have to play with a lot more to actually get a protein-based vaccine made.
Pfizer is running multiple candidates through phase 1 trials in the US and Germany to cut down on development time.
And even before we know whether the vaccine works or not, we're starting to ramp up manufacturing capacity so that we're ready to make it right away. The key things you have to establish to develop a vaccine are that it is safe, that it's effective, and that every time you make it, it comes out the same. So those key steps don't change whether you're going fast or you're going slow.
Changes in manufacturing can introduce unforeseen issues that can make a vaccine dangerous. That's what happened with the since discontinued polio vaccine decades ago. Safety is a major concern because vaccines are given to healthy people, so scientists have to ensure they don't affect things like liver or heart function, among other factors.
There are other issues as well. Even if companies are able to come up with a vaccine in less than 2 years, the vaccine research community is concerned with how they'd be able to produce and distribute it to everybody on the planet.
So we're aiming to produce 1 billion doses by the end of 2021. And some other companies are committing to the same kind of scale, either hundreds of millions or billions, but still it will not be enough for everyone.
What is a big unknown is what the durability of that protection is. Is it going to be a year, 2 years, or even maybe, unfortunately, 6 months or less? Because if it is measured in several months instead of years, which is entirely conceivable that that would be the case, then we have a secondary problem. How often do you need to boost somebody to keep that level of immunity up?
The final and perhaps most important hurdle for coronavirus vaccine development will be human behavior.
Are people going to be accepting of this vaccine? That's been such a huge problem in this country. You know, if you have 50% of people saying, I'm not going to take it under any condition, then of course you've lost the whole battle.
I remember as a 6 or 7 year old going to receive a polio vaccination and waiting in a long line for that. And it was a once in a lifetime vaccination. And what Fauci says in here, Dr. Fauci says in here, is we really don't know. There's a whole lot we don't know. But I am encouraged that there are that many people, that many really smart people in the medical community working hard to make this a reality so we can put this scourge behind us. I hope you guys found that interesting. The NASDAQ today, holy cow, brand new highs, 29.6% year to date. S&P now almost 8% on the year. You remember how many times I got to this point in the program and it was negative 8, 10, 12? The Dow is almost positive for the year. Russell's still down, and there's still an enormous gap, 36% almost, between the NASDAQ and the Russell. Why is that the case? It's the same reason, guys, the tech sector. The tech sector is killing the S&P, the FTSE, which is English British stocks, and then the banks because of the super low interest rates. Tech sector continues to reign. Tech, pharma, discretionary, that's discretionary spending as opposed to staples. Communication services, which is Facebook and Netflix, and the industrials, and then, you know, half the sectors are in the negative for the year. For anybody that thinks in a year like this, you can just put your money in a mutual fund and everything's going to work out. If this is not clear evidence of that, I don't know what is. Frankly, it would be great for me if it would be that simple, because I could just have a lot less time doing research. But that wouldn't be getting the results that you guys are getting. Here's another chart just to show you. Look at the NASDAQ, okay? The tech share of the market cap, year-to-date index return, so obviously much, much stronger in technology. But the U.S. market's beating the Nikkei, beating the Hang Seng, beating the Stock 600, which is Europe. The FTSE 100, again, that's the English market. I mean, we're just way up on top, guys, way up on top. The NASDAQ has made 38 all-time highs. 38 all-time highs this year, including today, while the S&P has gained 4 consecutive months, all while the U.S. unemployment rate is above 10%. And, did I mention, we're in a recession. You just need to pause. If you're only paying half attention, just pay full attention on this slide, guys. 38 all-time highs in a great year like 2013 is a super record. We have a pandemic that is still in progress. We are in a recession. We have unemployment above 10%, and look at the performance of the market. This is stunning. It's just, there's no other way to put it. The Dow still trying to catch up to the NASDAQ. You see the little yellow dot that I put there. You can look back to February and see it hasn't gotten close to that, whereas the NASDAQ, look at February, it has blasted way beyond that, way beyond that. If you compare the NASDAQ to other world markets on a graph like this, you just get a picture of how they were tracking together until the pandemic hit. Once the pandemic hit, the NASDAQ just blasted out of this pandemic because there are enough companies in there that were not dramatically affected by the downturn. Not a whole lot of airlines, not a whole lot of big restaurant chains inside the NASDAQ. That's the reason you see this performance. Why does the NASDAQ look so good? Well, there's Apple, the top line. Apple up 136% on the year. The technology sector in red up almost 50, and there's the S&P at 17. If this doesn't tell you that diversification is a very overused term, I'm trying to be kind here to other asset managers. Folks, it's not about diversification. It's about picking winners. This is not sentiment and, gee, I hope this is going to work out kind of stuff. Go with the winners. That's what we're doing. It's what we've always tried to do. And here's another reason why. This is the S&P performance from February 19, which was the lifetime high, until August 18, which is literally exactly 60 months. 62% of the S&P 500 are losers. Look at that negative return. The third standard deviation over there, you see some down 70%. That would be the airlines, okay, and other hospitality industry. And then you've got all these huge winners, but only 38%. So how possibly can the S&P be up? Because the winners are outstripping the losers in the percentage change, okay? And why are our portfolios doing better than the indices? Because we're going with winners. Now, this is important. Look at this chart. You see the recession in gray there, back 2008 and 9. This is U.S. single-family sales, home sales. Do you see the next recession on the far right side of the chart, the one in which we currently are? What do you see? You see sales rising in a recession. Every other recession in history, housing has gone down, which would make sense in a recession. Why is housing going up in this recession? Because this is different than every other time. I know that's a phrase that gets overused. It's different this time, but folks, it's different this time. Let's look at the builder's sentiment. Again, what do you see in the previous recession? It goes down, it comes back, it sort of wallows around. What happens in this recession? And it is still a recession. The index jackknifes to an all-time high, at least, shouldn't say all-time high, back 8 years, okay? Very big difference than the last recession. You've seen this, but I have to show it to you one more time because this is updated this week. Look at single-family houses sold in the U.S. Year to date. The blue bar is where we are this year in a recession with unemployment above 10%. Look at all the other years. And those weren't bad years. Those were just normal years. This year is highly abnormal, and they're going to be trying to figure out how people are doing this. How did consumer confidence get to the point? Homes are the number one consumer discretionary category, followed by automobiles, all right? But the consumer wants to buy. This may be among the most interesting charts, and I've never shown you this one before. I hadn't even seen it, really. I didn't know it existed, but I keep trying to find unique charts for you. Share of all loans by appraisal waiver. That means the bank is so confident in the valuation of the property and the borrower's ability to repay the loan that they don't even do an appraisal. And in a recession and with unemployment over 10%. Look at this chart. Over 42% of all the loans, home loans issued now, the bank's waiving the appraisal. They're waiving the appraisal because of the financial position of the buyers. Retail spending has fully recovered, although if you look at the dark line, certainly restaurants have not. In fact, I went to a birthday party last night at a restaurant that I used to frequent, and it was just jammed all the time. But last night, just a ghost town. The tables were way more than 6 feet apart, maybe like 10 or 12 feet apart. And there used to be a band in the corner, and they're not there. And I feel for these people, just nice folks. And I asked for something on the menu. No, we don't have that anymore. It's a simpler menu. So, the dark line is reality, but the top line for the rest of retail is very much a positive. Retail sales, see the little black arrow, fully recovered. The overall retail sales data for 2020 has fully recovered. And that's what the little black line means. It's recovered it all from that jackknife, okay? For those that don't believe that the U.S. economy is in a recovery yet, 2/3 of the respondents by the Bloomberg New York Times survey believe that the U.S. economy is currently in recession. Well, technically we are, so that's accurate. Nearly an equal share of these panelists expect the recession to end the second half of 2020. I think that's right. Or sometime in 2021. I think that's too far away. But 15% think it's actually ended at the end of the second quarter. Well, we won't know that till we start getting the data later on in October. and 4% expected to last into 2022. I have no idea what they're watching, but it's not my program, okay? Big change in the Dow. It's not very often that the Dow 30 changes its lineup. Salesforce, which is a tech company, Honeywell, and Amgen will be added on Monday. They're going to replace Exxon, Raytheon, and Pfizer. But you guys aren't surprised about this, right? You guys that are regular viewers of my program, okay? Episode 21, right? August 6th, what did I say about ExxonMobil? The biggest problem is they want to invest in energy projects with long-term benefits to satisfy their shareholders. Yeah, but they're risking the dividend. And I tell you what, their market cap has been cut in 1/3, down 2/3 from what it was, and they are now gone from the Dow after, I think, one of the very oldest companies in there, well over 80 years. I always finish this section showing you this, what percentage of the stocks that are reporting. Now, we've only have 17 companies left to report in the S&P 500 for this earnings season, and then September tapers out, and then we start up again with third quarter earnings being reported in October, but 82% are above expectations. The normal number, or the average I should say, is around 73, so we're 9 percentage points above that. Very, very encouraging. Every once in a while, I'll update our performance. For those of you that have a CG account, you know what this is. It's up 35%. Those of you that aren't clients of ours, that's fine. If you want to know more, you know how to reach me. This is my actual account as of Friday afternoon. It was actually a little higher today. And then our DG program, this is exchange traded funds, a little more conservative program, still up 16.6, killing all the indices but the NASDAQ, of course, because it is exchange traded funds, but CG is easily beating the NASDAQ. So just a little performance date for you. Looking at the election, guys, it's upon us. It is upon us. So what are the factors? Who is going to stay home? Who is going to stay home? Well, what this is showing you, and you may need to pause this when you watch again, white, non-college, white college, black, Hispanic, Asian, obviously people of color. What happens in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania if they stay home? Well, it definitely will have an effect, because those three states, if they go to one candidate or the other, that's pretty much the election. That's how important the heartland is of America. If either candidate wins all three of those states, it's almost impossible mathematically for the other candidate to win. So we will be keeping up with that over the next few weeks. This is a new chart that I have, and it shows you the swing from conservative to liberal, liberal to conservative. Both Iowa and Ohio over the last 6 to 8 years have swung from being marginally left to centrist to on the right. Now, I'm going to feature different states every single week here going forward, because these are the swing states that you hear about, and it's really important how they play out. Volatility in an election year, you can see 2008 extremely high, and some of that's because it carried into obviously a major change with Barack Obama taking office. And then 2016, which was actually less volatile, but that's because it was such a shocker after the opening night. Okay? Now today, the news of the day is that Nancy Pelosi says there shouldn't be any debates. Now, you might say, Charlie, that's not really a financial commentary. Well, maybe it's not. But the reality is that politics always affects investing. And if this election does not get decided on November 3rd, and it swings out, or strings out, I should say, another few weeks, we could have a situation like we did in 2000 with Bush and Gore. Look how young they are. That's what I thought when I grabbed this slide. Look how volatile the market behaved, in fact, negatively, because markets don't like uncertainty. I would argue that as investors, the market wants either candidate to win conclusively on November 3rd. Now, the market doesn't really care. Believe it or not, the market is agnostic at this point. If the Senate were to swing, that would be a different issue. We'll cover that, obviously, over the ensuing weeks. But the market really just wants to see a conclusive winner and not have this strung out, just like you can see what happened in 2000. We don't want that. So As you probably know, and that's why I'm going to have a relatively short program here, the Republican National Convention finishes tonight, and President Trump will accept his invitation to be president again. So, but I want to play for you an update here. This was Joe Biden accepting a week ago tonight after we went off the air.
I accept this nomination for President of the United States of America.
When a candidate gives the speech accepting his party's nomination to be president, you usually learn something about that candidate, but you learn a lot more about what kind of campaign that candidate intends to run in the fall in the general election. And so it was with Joe Biden in his acceptance speech at the Democratic Convention on Thursday night. Now, this was an unusual and unprecedented speech in that it was not given to an arena full of screaming supporters, but rather to a virtually empty convention hall because of the coronavirus. But other than that, it was a fairly conventional speech, and three aspects of it jumped out at me in particular. First, the fight against that coronavirus is going to be a centerpiece of the Biden campaign this fall.
As president, the first step I will take will be to get control of the virus that has ruined so many lives.
Not a peripheral part, but a central part of the campaign.
Our current president has failed in his most basic duty to the nation. He's failed to protect us. He's failed to protect America. And my fellow Americans, that is unforgivable.
That tells you the Biden campaign thinks the virus is weighing heavily on the minds of American voters now, and still will be weighing heavily on their minds on Election Day, and that the extent of the problem is a vulnerability for President Trump. Second, a lot of this campaign is going to be about character, not just issues. In fact, that's been a theme of this convention all week. There's been almost as much discussion of Joe Biden's empathy as his policy positions. That tells you the Biden campaign thinks a personality comparison between the two candidates works to their benefit. Expect to hear more about that as this campaign goes on as well. And third, there's going to be a lot of outreach to Republicans and independents almost as much as to Democrats.
While I'll be a Democratic candidate, I will be an American president.
Now, Joe Biden did say in this speech, I'll be an American president. I want to represent all of us. I want to win the hearts and souls of America, not just Democrats, but of America.
That's the job of a president, to represent all of us, not just our base or our party.
Clearly, the Biden campaign thinks the votes of moderate Republicans and independents, people who might like Donald Trump's policies but don't like his style, are available to them. That's going to mean, among other things, not moving too far to the left on policy. Now, as a footnote, it's going to be interesting to see next week how Republicans and President Trump and the president in his own acceptance speech next Thursday go about seeing that those people don't defect from the party.
You guys had some really good questions, or comments, I should say, while the video was rolling here. Let's ask this question, and then I'm going to answer some of the comments you guys have in here. So what is the likely outcome of this year's election on your portfolio? We can't really quantify what the different candidates are and how that's going to make your life better or not better, but we can quantify, or at least try to, how it's going to affect your portfolio. So answer A, the election will have little impact. Answer B, the election will have a big impact depending on which candidate wins. Answer C, the election will not have a lasting impact after the first few months. And D, not sure what to think. Okay? So I'm going to answer some questions here. Yeah, Nellie, I see that on the refire requiring an appraisal. What I should have said earlier, and I probably didn't, is that what I did read later after I put that slide in there, it seems like you have to have 20 to 25% equity, because at that point you're taking a bigger risk than someone that puts 5% down, and that's why the appraisals are being waived. So you have to have substantial equity at the closing. Okay. Debbie, houses are selling in South Florida for more than double what they're worth. Wow, that sounds like 2006 and 7, doesn't it? We got B, A, C, B, B. Okay, big impact depending on which candidate wins. And pretty soon, guys, in 3 or 4 weeks, I'm going to ask you which candidate you think is going to win. All right? Because it's going to matter. Okay, we'll have a lasting impact after the first few months. Yeah, I think you're probably right, Debbie, based on the comments that I said earlier. If you got any additional questions, or if I'd missed something, guys, send me a comment now, because we're on about a 25-second delay. But I wanted to run this by you. In my studies, I read, and this is so obvious, I think we know this, but we don't mention it. Freedom is not the natural state in which most of us humans have lived ever since the beginning of time. Freedom is not the natural state. It's an unnatural state, and I don't mean a state of Florida or a state of Wisconsin. It's an unnatural state. Think back to the very beginning of recorded history, whether it's from the Bible or other historical documents. People have been enslaved. They have been under monarchs. They have not been free. They have not been free. And this country is not the norm. In fact, it is the distinct anomaly. All right? And that is one of the items on the agenda this year. We have anarchy, and just down the road from us, actually just north of us here in Chicago, is a city by the name of Kenosha that most of us that live here know. Those of you around the country probably don't know anything about Kenosha, but we've been there, Alice and I, many times. It's not a very big place, but it's definitely a hotbed of anarchy right now, and it troubles me deeply. It really does. It really does. So, all right, just reminding you guys, the new website, if you want to get a financial plan done or you want to do a risk profile, just go in there, type your name. A couple of you did that last week. I sent out your profiles. This is what it looks like. Takes about 5 minutes. Good for you to know. Good for you to know, especially as we head into what could be a very volatile season here. The financial plan thing takes a little longer, but I don't have to get involved. You can totally do it on your own, get the results, and see whatever you want to see there. So just a reminder here, be sure you subscribe so you know what's going on when we're going live on Mondays and Thursdays. And of course, Twitter here. Let me see what else I have. What answers did we have here? Hoping you have the answer and make the right source for my portfolio. Well, thank you, E, for that answer there, Nellie. D for Larry and Connie. You know what? I'm hoping that you may not be sure what to think about it now, but over the next few weeks, guys, I thought it was busy and crazy from March to May, and I thought we'd go to like every other week here, but enough of you said, no, you want to keep doing these every week. It's only going to get more intense as we get up to the 3rd of November. And then imagine what it's going to be like. What happens if we don't have a result that night? What happens if we have 10 states that are contested? What happens if it goes to the Supreme Court and Roberts flips and votes with the Democrats? The Democrats. They shouldn't be calling them the Democrats, but the reality is we have a political Supreme Court, as anyone on this broadcast knows. I mean, there are so many uncertainties, and one push of a pen or vote could dramatically affect the market, and that's why I'm on this, guys. I'm on it and trying to bring you the most accurate news I can. So, U.S. still the shining city on the hill? You bet it is, Ann. You bet it is, okay? Guys, I think that's about it, although I always finish, as you know, with my data here. Take a screenshot of that. If you don't know how to reach us, it's right there. And then I read from 2 Timothy, "For we have not been given a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power, love, and a sound mind." It is my deeply held belief that we will not only survive this pandemic, we will not only survive this election, but we will emerge a stronger nation from both of these. Really appreciate you guys being here. You mean the world to me. Keep sending me your questions. Feel free to send them during the week, too. If you've got them, I'll respond as quickly as I can. I would encourage you to watch the program tonight. You can watch it on YouTube or Fox. Whether or not you like the president, this is one of the most important speeches of his career, as it was for Joe Biden. And with the completion of this speech tonight, the official beginning of the political season, of course, as you well know, it really starts about 3 months after the previous election. So anyway, I hope you're enjoying our coverage. We're just really glad you're with us. We'll see you on Monday. From COVID to clarity, this is CB3 Live.